The ballroom lights buzzed faintly overhead, casting a polished glow over rows of navy suits and neatly pressed military uniforms. It was the Defense Innovation Forum in Austin, Texas, where defense contractors mingled with Pentagon officials, veterans, and lobbyists over shrimp cocktails and billion-dollar contracts. Tom Kincaid stood near the back wall, one hand resting lightly on the leash in his grip. His other hand cradled a lukewarm coffee he hadn't touched. His eyes weren't on the stage. They were on the German shepherd beside him, Rex. Rex sat tall, motionless, his amber eyes fixed forward. He had been calm the entire morning, even through the chaotic sound tests and foot traffic. That stillness was something Tom had come to trust. But the dog's ears twitched the moment the MC announced the next speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our keynote speaker, Mr. Alan Creed, CEO of Centurion Dynamics. Applause broke. Some stood. Others whispered excitedly. But Rex didn't move. Until he did. A low rumble started in the back of Rex's throat. Not a bark, not even a full growl, just the vibration of instinct tightening in his chest. His muscles coiled, his front paws shifted forward. The leash pulled taut in Tom's hand. Tom's brows furrowed. "Rex?" he said quietly, leaning down. "What's wrong, boy?" Rex took a half step back, then another. His tail was still, not tucked, but rigid. His breathing changed, measured, tight. His stare locked onto the stage as if something had crawled up out of a memory he hadn't expected to see again. Tom followed the dog's gaze. Alan Creed had just taken the stage, dressed in an immaculately tailored charcoal suit, his silver hair gleaming under the spotlight. He offered a charming, rehearsed smile and waved casually to the audience. Rex let out another growl, slightly louder. Heads turned. A few nearby guests looked curiously at the dog. Tom pulled gently at the leash. "Down," he whispered. Rex didn't sit. He stood his ground, still as a statue, a soldier in a moment of recognition. The man on stage began speaking. "It's an honor to stand here today among those who serve, who innovate, and who believe in protecting our way of life." Tom didn't hear the rest. His gut was tightening. Rex had never reacted like this. Not in public, not in any of the PTSD sessions, not even around fireworks. The shepherd had been calm during loud drills, indifferent to strangers. But now, he was clearly disturbed, not afraid, alert, defensive. "Something's off," Tom muttered, more to himself than to Rex. A woman in a dark green dress leaned over from the next row. "Is he trained to do that?" she asked with a polite smile, motioning to Rex. "He doesn't do anything without a reason," Tom said, flatly. She blinked, taken aback by the edge in his tone. Creed's voice rolled across the room, confident and controlled. "Centurion Dynamics isn't just about weapons. It's about vision, about ensuring the brave men and women in uniform are never left behind again." That last line hit like a punch to Tom's chest. He looked at Rex. The dog's eyes hadn't moved, still locked, still watching. Tom's memory jerked back, fast and violent, to the Syrian desert. A failed extraction, the blood, the screaming, the silence that followed, the unanswered calls, and 3 of them left to die. No one ever said Creed's name, not officially. But rumors had trickled down, the kind that passed between soldiers when everything else had been scrubbed clean. A deal that went sideways, a delay in orders, a rescue window missed on purpose, because 3 Marines had seen something they shouldn't. Tom had never confirmed it, never had proof. But Rex's reaction wasn't imagined. When the keynote ended, applause broke again. Creed stepped down from the podium, making his way through a side corridor where VIPs clustered for private conversation and media photos. Tom watched Rex. The dog shifted his weight, turned slightly, and stared at that exit door. his entire body tensed again, like a compass swinging to true north. Tom hesitated only a moment before following Rex toward the hallway, moving past murmuring guests and distracted security. They reached the corner just as Creed turned the opposite way, flanked by 2 assistants. Tom didn't call out, he just watched, and Rex stood beside him, unmoving, waiting. "Do you recognize him?" Tom whispered. Rex didn't answer, but his eyes did not waver, and for the first time in months, since the desert, since the silence, since burying the last of their team, Tom's own instincts flared back to life. This wasn't over, not even close. The desert never really left him. Even now, weeks away from sand and gunpowder, Tom Kincaid still woke with the same start, jaw clenched, fists curled, heart pounding before his brain caught up. But what brought him back, what reminded him it was over, was always the same. The weight beside the bed, the slow, steady breath, the sound of claws shifting on hardwood. Rex, he wasn't supposed to be here, none of them were, but especially not Rex. Back in that hellhole near the Syrian border, it had all gone sideways fast. The recon op had been simple, in and out, locate, report, support. But then a village turned into a flashpoint. Locals had fled. Intel had been wrong. The enemy wasn't retreating, they were regrouping. Tom's unit had radioed for extraction, expecting a bird in 20. Instead, they got silence. For 4 hours. Then gunfire. Then blood. Out of the 9 men who went in, 3 came out. Tom, Bishop, and a corporal named Raffi, and Rex. But Rex hadn't been theirs. He belonged to Bishop. Sergeant Connor Bishop had been Rex's handler for nearly 3 years. The two had been inseparable. Rex wasn't just a tool, he was Bishop's shadow, his extra set of senses, his tether to calm. Bishop died with his hand still gripping Rex's vest, body shielding the dog from a grenade blast. Tom remembered pulling Rex out of the wreckage. The dog was burned, dazed, bleeding from his side, but alive. Just barely. And when Tom looked into those dark, wounded eyes, he'd made the kind of promise you don't say out loud. Whatever it takes, I've got you now. The months that followed were stitched together with hospital beds, debriefings, and too many questions with no real answers. The official reports said the extraction delay was due to unstable airspace and conflicting command directives. Bullshit. Tom had seen the look on Creed's face back then, just days before the mission. At a pre-brief. Just a nod from the man, detached, impatient. Not a soldier. A tycoon with a pen and a contract, deciding which lives were worth paperwork. The word was, Creed had pulled air support at the last minute due to asset risk. Translation. There was something more valuable than the men on the ground. Tom hadn't dared dig deeper then. He didn't have the clearance, the leverage, or the will. Now he had Rex. The bond between them wasn't born from training. It came from silence, from watching each other tremble during thunder, from shared nightmares that left them both pacing before dawn. Tom didn't try to command Rex. He listened, waited, learned. Sometimes the dog would press his head against Tom's knee for no reason. Other times he would stare at the door for hours, unmoving. And Tom let him. Because Rex had seen the same darkness. He had made it out, just like him, only to be thrown into a world that didn't quite know what to do with them. There was a scar that ran along Rex's right side, hidden beneath the fur. Tom could trace it with a fingertip, remembering the makeshift field stitches and the shaking hands of Raffi holding the morphine. He could also remember the look in Rex's eyes the first time he visited Bishop's grave. The dog didn't bark, didn't whine. He simply lay down beside the stone and refused to move for hours. Tom had waited in the grass until dusk, not saying a word. In the months since, they had become their own kind of unit. Tom didn't go to the VA groups. He didn't answer calls from command. He rebuilt motorcycles part-time and walked Rex every day at the same hour, same trail, like it was a ritual to keep the ghosts at bay. But that night after the forum, something shifted. Rex hadn't eaten his dinner. Instead, he'd sat by the front door, body stiff, ears alert, not panicked, but deeply focused. Tom sat on the couch, beer untouched. "You know something I don't," he murmured. Rex turned his head slightly, the kind of slow, measured glance that made Tom's chest tighten. The last time Rex had done that, they'd stumbled into a roadside IED seconds before it detonated. Tom didn't believe in omens, but he trusted Rex. He pulled out the old mission file, the one he wasn't supposed to have. Just fragments, photos, blackout lines, and a single grainy satellite image showing the drop zone, 2 days before it was scrubbed. Bishop's handwriting was on the back of one page. A name. Not Creed's, but close. Creed Holdings, Raptor payload test, Phase 2 confirmed. Tom had never known what that meant, but suddenly the pieces that didn't matter started to feel like they did. He looked at Rex. "You think it's time?" The shepherd didn't move, but his gaze was already on the hallway, toward the room where Tom kept the locked case, the one marked "Do Not Open." Tom stood, opened it. Inside was Bishop's vest, still patched, still stained, still carrying the faintest scent of blood, sand, and something unmistakable. Resolve. Rex moved for the first time all evening, and sat beside it, ready. The Texas air was thick with the smell of tar and fast food grease. Sunset poured gold over the parking lot outside the Fairmont Hotel, where the Defense Tech Symposium had just wrapped up. Tom hated crowds, but Rex hated elevators more, so they took the long way out, down the side ramp and through the overflow lot where black SUVs lined up like government chess pieces. Rex was calm, leash slack, until he wasn't. Halfway past a tinted Chevy Suburban, the German shepherd stopped dead. His body went rigid, hackles rising as his nose dropped to the ground. A low sound built in his throat. Not a growl, not yet, but that hum of unease Tom had learned to respect. "Easy, buddy," Tom murmured. Rex didn't move. His nose hovered just beneath the passenger side wheel well, then darted forward. A sniff. Another. Then his front paw struck the ground sharply, once, twice. He began digging. Tom pulled back gently on the leash. "Hey, Rex, leave it." But Rex didn't. He was locked in now, tail stiff, eyes scanning the underside of the SUV. His nose brushed something near the front axle. Then he sat, very suddenly. Alert behavior. Not explosive trained alert. Rex had never specialized in that, but something close. A scent he knew. Something he remembered. Tom crouched beside him, eyes narrowing. There, wedged in the edge of the chassis, partially melted into a ridge of black plastic, was a small metal object, barely the size of a coin. He reached for it, brushing grit aside. It was a military badge, burned, twisted, the enamel scorched. But still visible beneath the soot was the worn insignia of the 19th Marine Recon, Tom's old unit. And just below the edge, barely hanging on, was a blood-stained fabric strap, tan desert camo. There was a number scratched into the metal plate, almost invisible. 041-53-7921. That was Bishop's badge number. Tom felt his stomach drop. Number this couldn't be. Bishop was dead. He'd seen it, had helped drag his body out of that crater, had zipped the bag himself. Then why the hell was his unit badge scorched and jammed under a civilian vehicle outside a defense conference? Rex gave a short huff, then stood, and turned to the vehicle window. He stared through the glass. Unblinking, Tom followed his line of sight. Nothing. Just a reflection of the darkening skyline. But Rex didn't look away. And that's when Tom noticed it, Movement inside. A shadow. Small but distinct. Not a person. Maybe a case? A bag? A figure? Tom's pulse kicked up. He backed away slowly, one hand gripping Rex's collar. A uniformed valet passed by, pausing at Tom's expression. "You okay, sir?" Tom kept his voice flat. "Yeah, fine. Whose car is this?" The valet scanned the numbered tag on the windshield. "That one? Belongs to some rep from Redmount Industries. Mr. Creed's security detail." Creed. Of course. Tom felt heat rising behind his eyes. He gave the valet a tight nod and moved off with Rex. Once they were out of sight behind a pillar, Tom crouched beside the dog. "You recognize that scent?" Rex responded by licking once at the badge in Tom's hand, then looked back. It wasn't just about memory. This was fresh, recent, not something planted long ago. That badge had been moved. Recently. Did someone survive? The thought clawed into Tom's chest. The body they'd recovered had been badly burned, but they'd never formally DNA confirmed the remains. Too much chaos. Too much pressure from command. The reports had been rushed, sealed. But what if Bishop had been taken? The idea sounded insane, and yet there was the badge, the scent, Rex's reaction. Tom's hands trembled slightly as he pocketed the item. He glanced at Rex, who now sat calmly, watching him. Still. Waiting. "We're going to need answers, boy." The dog's ears twitched. Back at the hotel room, Tom spread out what he had. The mission log, the redacted field orders, satellite images. He placed the burned badge on top of the folder and stared at it. Why would someone from Creed's team have this? Why now? Rex lay down nearby, head on his paws, but his eyes never closed. There was something coming. He felt it in his bones. And Tom was starting to believe him. The receptionist at Redmount's private tower gave Tom the kind of look reserved for men who wore boots to a billionaire's lobby. "Do you have an appointment, sir?" "No," Tom said evenly. "But Alan Creed knows who I am." Her perfectly lacquered nails paused mid-keystroke. "Your name?" "Tom Kincaid." She typed, paused, blinked twice at the screen. "Mr. Creed is in a meeting. Tell him it's about Syria, Operation Hayfield." Her fingers froze. The artificial smile dropped a degree. "One moment." Tom stood in silence, Rex sitting by his side like a living statue. The dog hadn't moved since stepping inside, but his eyes hadn't stopped scanning. 3 minutes passed before the woman spoke again. "You can go up. He'll see you." The elevator ride to the penthouse suite was long and too quiet. Tom's stomach twisted. He wasn't sure what he expected. An apology? A lie? A flicker of conscience? The doors opened into a steel and glass office with a panoramic view of downtown Dallas. Creed stood at the far end, hands in his pockets, his back to the door. He turned slowly, impeccably dressed, silver hair, calm eyes. He smiled, but it didn't reach his face. "Well," Creed said, stepping forward, "if it isn't the ghost of recon past." Tom didn't offer a hand. "You were on that call," Tom said quietly. Creed tilted his head. "Which call?" "Syria, 6 years ago. You gave the order to pull back support. You left us there." Creed chuckled, low and dismissive. "Support was pulled by Central Command, not by me. You were on the oversight board. You were in the room." Creed walked to a bar cart, poured a glass of water, and sipped. "That mission was complicated. 14 men died, including Bishop. And 3 survived." Creed replied smoothly. "War is ugly, Kincaid. I'm not sure what you think you're doing here. Digging up bones?" Tom stepped forward, heat rising in his voice. "I found Bishop's badge. Under your security details, SUV Creed didn't flinch. That proves nothing. It proves he didn't die in that crater. Maybe he didn't. Maybe he did. Frankly, it was a long time ago." Then Rex moved. Without a sound, the dog surged forward, not attacking, but placing himself between Tom and Creed. Shoulders squared, teeth bared, a deep, guttural bark ripped from his throat. Creed jolted. Tom grabbed the leash, shocked. Rex wasn't a bite risk, not unless... Then it hit him. That bark, that stance. It wasn't random, it was recognition. Creed's voice had changed, just slightly. Something in the tone. Not the boardroom version. Deeper. Sharper. Like it had sounded through a crackling comm line, barking out cold orders in a sandstorm 6 years ago. Rex knew that voice. He remembered it. Creed recovered fast, adjusting his jacket. "Control your animal." Tom pulled Rex back, but the dog wouldn't look away. He stayed planted, tail stiff, eyes locked on Creed like a loaded weapon. Security burst through the glass door a beat later. "That's enough," Creed said. "Escort Mr. Kincaid out." 2 men grabbed Tom's arms, one reaching for Rex's collar, but Rex snapped, not biting, just warning. The man backed off fast. Tom didn't resist. Not physically, but his mind was spinning. As they dragged him toward the elevator, he shouted over his shoulder, "What happened to Bishop?" Creed didn't answer. Rex snarled one last time before the doors slid shut. Down in the parking garage, Tom paced beside his truck, chest heaving. Rex sat quietly now, the fury gone, but his eyes still watchful. "You remembered him," Tom said, crouching beside the dog. Rex's ear twitched. "You heard that voice before. You heard it during the op." Rex leaned forward, pressing his nose briefly against Tom's chest before settling back down. The pieces didn't fit cleanly yet. But one thing was suddenly clear. Alan Creed wasn't just a suit behind a weapons company. He'd been in the chain of command. He'd given orders. And maybe, just maybe, he'd been on the ground. And Rex had remembered. Not a smell, not a face, but a voice. One that had left men to die. Tom looked at his dog with something like awe. "Damn it, Rex. You're not just a hero, you're a witness." Tom jolted upright, the sheets twisted around his legs. His heart was already pounding before he realized why. Rex was at the door, pawing at it in a silent frenzy. No barking, just urgency. Eyes locked on Tom like the clock was running out. "What is it, buddy?" Tom asked, already sliding on jeans over his boxers. Rex bolted the moment the door opened, tail low, movement sharp and focused. Not fear. Mission mode. Tom barely had time to grab his hoodie and Glock before chasing after him into the night. The Dallas air was thick with humidity, streetlights casting yellow cones onto the empty road. Rex didn't look back. He moved like he knew exactly where he was going. South, past the construction site, past the canal road, and then across a stretch of fenced-in land marked with faded military warnings. "Rex!" Tom hissed. "Where the hell are you taking me?" Rex didn't stop. Tom's phone buzzed in his pocket, a GPS ping he didn't recognize, sent from the secure backup device in his go bag. The signal was bouncing erratically, jumping across coordinates near Ridgepoint, close to the old logistics hub from the hayfield operation. A site long decommissioned. The signal should have been dead. But something was forcing it on. Tom jumped a fence and landed hard in the overgrowth. Rex was already at the edge of a derelict warehouse, half collapsed, tagged with graffiti, windows long blown out. The dog circled the perimeter once, then stopped at a concrete wall. He sniffed hard, then scratched. Once, twice, then furiously. Tom moved closer, gun raised. Rex backed up a step, then lunged at a rusted sheet of metal bolted over what looked like a buried storm door. His paws scraped at the rust, leaving streaks of orange. "Hold up," Tom muttered. "You smell something?" Rex gave a sharp bark, then resumed digging. Tom yanked at the edge of the sheet. Nothing. Locked from the inside. He stepped back, scanned the wall. That's when he saw it. An old keypad buried beneath ivy and flaking paint. He brushed it off. It was dead. No lights. But the bolt holding the door was weak. Tom kicked it hard, again and again, until the latch gave way with a shriek of metal. The door creaked open on a hollow darkness. The air hit him first, musty, damp, and tinged with rot. Rex didn't hesitate. He dropped low and slipped into the dark. Tom followed, flashlight beam cutting through layers of dust and disuse. Broken crates, rusted racks. A desk flipped over and mold, spreading up the cinder block walls. Rex? The dog was ahead, stopped in front of a smaller room. His nose was at the bottom of the door, tail still, ears high. Tom stepped around him, hand on the knob. On me. He twisted it. The door groaned open. The smell inside was worse, sour, metallic. And someone moved. Tom raised his light. The man inside squinted, recoiled slightly. Long beard, bones pressing against skin, eyes that looked both alert and gone at the same time. He spoke first. Tom. Tom's mouth dried. He lowered the flashlight just enough to see better. The voice was cracked, but familiar. Bishop? The man nodded slowly, tears welling without falling. I thought you all were dead. Tom stepped in, grabbing his arm. Jesus, we thought you were dead. Bishop winced as Tom helped him sit up. His wrists bore deep scars. His uniform was mostly rags, military tags still clinging to one belt loop. Why are you here? Tom whispered. They kept me. Bishop rasped. Creed, or his people. They wanted the coordinates, the intel from Hayfield. I didn't give it. Rex whined low and stepped forward, gently nudging Bishop's hand with his nose. The man froze, then broke. Rex? His voice cracked on the name. He leaned forward, brushing trembling fingers across the dog's ear. You're still alive. Rex sat, close and still, letting Bishop rest against him. Tom swallowed the lump in his throat. How long? Since the blast. They took me, used me, then dumped me here. No one was supposed to find me. Tom looked around the room, piecing together the timeline, the lockout, the fake death report. Creed hadn't just erased Bishop, he'd buried him. Alive. And Rex, damn him, Rex had known. Not from data, not from logic. From scent, from instinct, from something no machine would ever have. Tom exhaled hard and looked down at his dog. You just saved a man's life. Rex didn't look back. He didn't need praise. He just stayed where he was, a steady warmth against Bishop's side. And for the first time in 6 years, Tom Kincaid felt the impossible. Hope. Not because of weapons, not because of intelligence files, because a dog refused to forget. The hum of the Motel AC was the only sound in the room. Tom sat across from Mace Rivera, now clean-shaven and dressed in borrowed clothes that didn't quite fit. His frame had wasted away from months, maybe years of captivity, but his eyes were steady now. Clear. Tired, but focused. Rex lay between them, head resting on his paws, but his ears perked with every shift Mace made. Watching, guarding. Tom pressed record. Start from the beginning, he said quietly. Mace leaned forward, elbows on knees. We were never supposed to know. Know what? The trade. Creed's private contracts. It started in Kandahar, small crates going unaccounted for, deliveries being rerouted. But it was the Hayfield base where we caught him. Red-handed. Illegal arms, stuff that didn't even belong to the US anymore. Russian tech, Israeli optics, all moving through a back channel. Tom's stomach tightened. You reported it? We tried. Mace gave a bitter laugh. He found out before the report hit command. The next stop was a setup. They sent us into a structure marked hostile, but it was wired. We were separated. I made it out with Foster and Laramie. That's when Creed's men showed up. His men. Not military, private. No insignia, no rules. Mace rubbed his wrist, as if the memory still burned. They shot Laramie right in front of us, said we were ghosted, already listed KIA. Foster and I were moved between bunkers, kept sedated. Then one day they just dumped me at that warehouse. I don't know what happened to Foster." Tom stared, rage crawling up his throat. And Creed covered it all. He didn't just cover it, he signed it. Rex let out a soft growl, almost as if he understood. Tom leaned back, his mind reeling. All this time, Creed hadn't been careless. He'd been calculating. He looked at Rex, who now sat up, eyes on him. "You knew," Tom muttered. "Back at the SUV, you caught the scent." Rex's tail thumped once. Tom stood and crossed the room, opening a weathered duffel. Inside was a hard case lined with foam, his old digital recorder, encrypted files, satellite photos, mission logs. He had carried them not knowing why. Now he did. "Rex," he said. The dog padded over. Tom placed one photo in front of him, an overhead of hayfield taken before the shutdown. "Find." Rex sniffed once, twice. Then he pawed at the northwest quadrant. "That's where the crates moved through," Mace confirmed, eyes wide. "We saw trucks parked along that line. Here." Rex moved again, pawing closer to the supply depot marked inactive. Tom circled it with a red pen. "That's the point of origin." He laid out the other documents. One was a time-stamped log from a recon drone the night of the explosion. Another showed inconsistencies in Creed's field reports, times and places that didn't line up. "I've got a buddy in OSI," Tom said. "If we piece this right, we can open a black file request." Mace nodded, slower now. "But we'll need more than words. Creed's got friends up the ladder." Tom reached for a mini recorder, flipped it on. "Then let's give them a story they can't bury." Rex stood beside him, watching as Tom laid the foundation for something long overdue. The next days blurred into controlled urgency. Tom and Mace worked in shifts, reconstructing the timeline. They used maps, sat photos and field reports, corrupted where Creed had edited, but the truth left fingerprints. And always Rex was there, sniffing old uniforms, pausing at specific spots on maps, growling softly when a name was spoken. He wasn't just helping, he was connecting the ghosts. Tom watched Rex one night, lying near Mace's cot. The soldier had nightmares. Understandable. But Rex was always there, pressing against him, grounding him like a sentinel in the dark. Tom remembered something his father once said. "A good dog will follow you into hell, but a great one, he'll bring you back out." Rex had brought Mace out of hell, and now, with every scrap of proof, he was dragging truth back with him. On the fourth night, Rex paused beside the fireproof lockbox Tom had used for his notes. He nudged it with his nose. Tom opened it. At the bottom, something he'd forgotten. A flash drive, half melted but intact. It had been mailed anonymously after the war, no return address. He'd never been able to crack it. But now, with Mace here, they had one more key. Mace plugged it into the laptop. The screen came alive. Video, audio, a mission debrief. Creed's voice. "Take them out before sunrise. Make it look like enemy fire. I'll clean the paperwork." Tom didn't breathe. Mace sat back slowly, pale. Rex stood at the screen, ears forward, eyes locked. No one spoke. The truth had a voice now. And with Rex at the center, they were going to make sure it was heard. The ballroom at the Centurion Hotel was dressed in flags and polished brass, every corner a gleam of military formality. The annual Defense Integrity Forum wasn't exactly the place for drama. It was a haven for handshakes, medals, and speeches no one really listened to. Until today. Tom stood near the podium, his suit slightly rumpled, a stark contrast to the tailored generals and sharp-dressed lobbyists. But his badge hung around his neck, and Rex sat tall at his side, leash loose, but attention razor-sharp. Mace stood in the wings, pale but resolute, his presence hidden until the right moment. Across the room, Brigadier General Everett Creed entered with all the arrogance of a man too protected for consequence. His uniform bore new ribbons. His smile carried practiced charm. He didn't see Rex at first. Tom tapped the mic once. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here. Before we begin, I ask for your full attention. What you're about to see is not a presentation. It's a reckoning." The screens behind him flickered on. A still frame. An overhead satellite image of Hayfield Base. Then, slowly, the overlays. Logistics paths, weapon shipments, time-stamped reports. All meticulously connected, all signed under one name. Creed's name. Whispers started to spread like embers. Creed stepped forward, smirking. "Is this some kind of joke?" Tom turned calmly. "Why don't you tell them, sir?" Creed scoffed. "This is a smear campaign. I don't know who you think you are, but you're stepping into classified waters." Then Rex moved. In a flash, he rose from his spot and stepped between Tom and Creed, his massive frame like a wall of muscle and memory. He didn't growl. He didn't bark. He just stood there, eyes locked on Creed like he'd found the source of every nightmare burned into his bones. Creed froze. Something flickered behind his eyes. Recognition. Tom said nothing. He didn't need to. Because then Mace stepped out from the side curtain, limp still noticeable, but chin high. "I do," Mace said. His voice cracked but carried. "You left me to die." A hush dropped over the room like a curtain. Creed blinked. "I don't know who—" "Foster's dead. Laramie's dead. I was held for over a year in a warehouse because you couldn't let a weapons deal go public." Gasps. Chairs shifted. Phones came up. Tom tapped the podium again. "And now we have audio." He played the recording, the one from the burned flash drive. Creed's voice, undeniable. "Take them out before sunrise. Make it look like enemy fire. I'll clean the paperwork." Silence. Creed stepped back, then turned, and bolted. The entire ballroom seemed to freeze, but not Rex. He sprang forward, just enough to cut Creed off before he reached the main aisle. His snarl stopped Creed mid-stride. For the first time, the general looked small. Rex didn't bite, didn't lunge. He just stood there, low growl rising in his throat like a verdict. Two officers from military criminal investigations moved in swiftly, weapons drawn, but not fired. They cuffed Creed while he stared at Rex like he'd seen a ghost. Tom knelt beside his partner, gently resting a hand on his back. "Easy, boy. You did your part." Rex sat, still watching Creed as they led him out, but his breathing steadied. The room erupted, not in applause, but stunned murmurs. A few reporters already live-streaming, others frantically calling editors. Tom stepped back to the mic. For years, men like Creed have hidden behind medals, behind status. But truth doesn't need a rank. It just needs time and the right witness. He looked down at Rex. And sometimes, the truth walks on 4 legs. Rex didn't wag his tail. He didn't need to. He'd just brought justice to a room full of uniforms. And he did it without saying a word. The hum of the engine was the only sound as Tom tightened his grip on the steering wheel. The desert stretched endlessly in front of them. Red rock, scrub, and a silence that weighed more than words. The GPS pinged again, weak and glitchy, but it gave them the final coordinates. An abandoned mining facility straddling the edge of the Mexican border. No official help. Mace asked from the back seat, loading the last of the gear into his duffel. Tom didn't look away from the road. "Washington claims jurisdictional gray area. We're on our own." In the rear compartment, Rex stood alert, his eyes focused out the side window, body humming with quiet readiness. He hadn't made a sound in hours, but the way he leaned forward told Tom everything. Rex knew. By dusk, the trio arrived. The mine was a crumbling shell of rusted corrugated steel and cracked concrete, once a hub for copper extraction, now forgotten by time. But someone had brought life back to it, life with guns and secrets. They didn't go in through the front. Mace led them to a service tunnel partially collapsed from years of erosion. Rex sniffed once, then pressed forward without hesitation. He moved like he'd been here before, each pore deliberate, every breath assessing. The tunnel opened into a narrow shaft laced with chemical residue. Tom's flashlight caught faint glints of tripwire along the edges. Homemade traps, sloppily done, but still deadly. Rex stopped, nose twitching. Then he moved, slow, guiding them in a precise pattern through the maze of wires. Once he froze mid-step, ears pinned back. Tom followed his line of sight. Pressure plate, barely visible. He exhaled quietly. Good catch, buddy. Beyond the shaft was a rusted service door. Rex sniffed around the base, then moved left, nosing toward a side vent. He's saying don't go loud. Mace murmured, eyes wide. They've wired the main door. Tom nodded. Then we go quiet. The vent opened into a crawl space lined with ductwork and mold. They followed Rex, belly crawling through dust and heat. Voices echoed faintly ahead, 2, maybe 3 men, Spanish and English, trading insults and boredom. Rex stopped near a small grate and let out a low whine. Tom peered through. There they were, Foster and Laramie, emaciated, barely conscious, shackled to a support beam in the corner of a windowless room. One of the guards slouched against a wall, rifle across his lap, head bobbing. Tom mouthed, 2 guards. One awake, one out cold. Then everything went sideways. The groggy guard stirred, looked up, and reached for his comms. Before Tom could move, Rex launched. He exploded out of the vent like a missile, hit the ground in a blur of muscle and fury, and took the guard down hard. The man screamed, but it was cut off as Rex clamped down on his forearm and twisted. The rifle skittered away. The second guard scrambled, grabbing for his weapon, but Mace was already through the door. One clean tackle. Gunfire erupted. One shot slammed into the wall behind Tom, another pinged off metal. Tom covered Foster and Laramie, cutting their cuffs with bolt cutters. You're going to be okay. You're going home. The firefight was short but deafening. When it ended, Rex was standing over a groaning heap, blood on his muzzle, but none of it his. He turned to Tom, tail low, body vibrating with adrenaline. Rex, Tom said breathless, you saved us. Again. Outside, sirens wailed in the distance. Delayed backup finally mobilized after someone leaked the location. Too late to help, but maybe just in time to clean up. They moved quickly, dragging the guards outside, shielding the 2 rescued soldiers. Tom looked back once. The mine stood quiet again. But it wasn't the same silence anymore. It was the silence after the truth had finally been dug up, and in the middle of it stood a German shepherd, breathing, hard, ears perked. Not a pet, not a symbol, a soldier, and damn near the bravest one of them all. The chopper lifted off just after sunrise, blades slicing the desert air, scattering sand across the cracked ground of the abandoned mine. Inside, 3 emaciated men sat wrapped in thermal blankets, IVs taped to their arms. Foster stared at the open sky like it was the first time he'd seen it in years. Laramie wept quietly, head resting on Mace's shoulder. No one said a word. They didn't need to. Rex lay stretched on the floor between Tom's boots, tongue lolling, chest rising and falling in steady rhythm. He wasn't sleeping. Not fully. His eyes tracked every sound, every shift in wind. But there was peace there now, however fragile. By the time they landed at the border outpost, news had already spread. 3 U.S. soldiers presumed dead, found alive. Private rescue mission exposes high-level cover-up. But the headline that stuck, the one every outlet, every whisper, every camera clung to, was The Shepherd Mission. It wasn't about the military, or Tom, or even the man now shackled in a holding cell awaiting federal charges. It was about a German shepherd who had led them through hell and brought them back alive. Creed's arrest had been swift and shockingly quiet. The evidence, audio recordings, falsified death reports, shipment manifests linked to illicit arms deals, was damning. The Justice Department moved quickly, perhaps too quickly. There were whispers that others higher up had quietly resigned or vanished into early retirement to avoid the coming fallout. Tom watched the press conference from the hallway outside. He didn't want the lights. Neither did Mace. But someone needed to speak. Rex sat beside the podium, tail still, spine straight, eyes alert. He didn't flinch at the camera flashes or the applause. When Mace stepped up and put a hand on Rex's back, the entire room leaned in. "I owe my life to a dog," Mace said, "and so do these 2 men. We call this the Shepherd Mission, but it's more than a title, it's a truth." He paused. Rex didn't just guide us physically. He reminded us what loyalty looks like, what focus feels like, and what never giving up actually means. The applause started as a murmur and grew until the room was standing. Reporters jostled for quotes, but all anyone remembered was the image. A scarred soldier with his hand resting gently on the neck of a dog who stared back at the crowd like he'd seen it all, and wasn't impressed. In the days that followed, the Shepherd Mission became more than a rescue. It became a reckoning. Contracts tied to Creed unraveled. Investigations opened across multiple military procurement chains. Families of the presumed dead received apologies they should never have needed. One afternoon, Tom found himself in the quiet back garden of a VA hospital, sitting on a stone bench, watching Rex nose gently at a patch of rosemary. He still wore his military K9 tag, still carried the weight of a war no one could fully explain. "Looks like they want to give you a medal," Tom murmured. Rex looked up, head tilted. Tom smirked. "You probably think they're late." Behind them, Mace walked out with a manila folder. "Foster and Laramie are stable. Going to take a while, but they're talking again. Remembering things." Tom nodded, eyes still on Rex. He brought them back, all the way. Mace sat down beside him. "You know, they want to use his name for a new K9 initiative. PTSD service dogs for returning vets, called Rex units." Tom was quiet for a long moment. Then, "It fits." They sat in the silence, broken only by birdsong and the distant hum of traffic. Rex lay down between them, head resting across Tom's boots, eyes half-lidded in the drowsy sun. Not as a pet, not as a prop, but as the soldier who had finished the mission, when no one else could. And somewhere, without need for words or ceremony, they all understood. This wasn't just survival. This was legacy. The parade ground was unusually quiet. Rows of folding chairs lined the perimeter of Fort Breckenridge's ceremonial field. Flags fluttered at half-mast in the warm breeze, not for mourning, but respect. The crowd was mixed. Civilians in collared shirts and sunglasses, veterans in pressed dress blues, and handlers with their K9 partners sitting at their heels. At the center stood a temporary stage, flanked by 2 military police units. The podium bore the seal of the U.S. Army, and beside it, a long red carpet stretched to where a line of honorees waited. Among them, 3 men in dark suits with silver pins on their lapels, Mace, Laramie, Foster. And next to them, standing at precise attention with his tail down and ears alert, was Rex. He wore nothing but a leather collar, but even so, he looked more regal than any uniform could suggest. They called names, they read citations, They applauded. But when it came time to place the medal around Rex's neck, the general hesitated, just a second too long. Maybe it was nerves or reverence. Maybe it was the way Rex looked right into his eyes, unwavering, as if asking silently, "Do you understand now?" Mace stepped forward, giving the signal. Rex moved with practiced precision, stopping at the right spot. The medal, a silver cross engraved with his name, hung heavy from the ribbon. Cameras clicked, hands clapped, people rose. But Rex didn't flinch. He wasn't here for medals. At the back of the crowd, away from the noise and flashing lights, Tom stood by the chain-link fence, arms folded. He hadn't shaved, didn't wear his uniform. His boots were muddy, and there was a tear in the knee of his jeans. But no one looked at him. All eyes were on Rex, which was exactly how it should be. He whistled softly once. Rex's ears twitched. Then, without prompting, the dog turned from the stage and padded across the grass, slipping, between rows of chairs, ignoring outstretched hands and reporters' voices. He came straight to Tom. Tom knelt, and for a moment, just a breath, everything else vanished. The noise, the formality, the ceremony. Tom placed his hand gently on Rex's head, feeling the old scars beneath the fur, the warm pulse of life still beating steady and strong. "You did it, buddy," he whispered. "You kept the promise." Rex closed his eyes, leaned in. No medal could honor what they'd been through. No podium could hold the weight of what this dog had carried, what he had given. Later, long after the ceremony ended and the crowd dispersed, Tom and Rex sat together at the edge of the airfield. No words, just the hum of cicadas and the hush of wind in the grass. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting the whole base in gold. Rex lay beside him, head on his paws, eyes watching that horizon like it was still guarding something only he could see. Tom lit a cigarette, took one drag, then crushed it out. "You coming in?" Mace called from the barracks door, his voice half shouting over the distance. "In a minute," Tom replied. He looked down at Rex. "You okay?" Rex's tail thumped once. Tom smiled. They stayed there until the last light bled from the sky, two silhouettes in the quiet, one man and one dog who had survived everything except the silence that followed. And maybe that was enough, because in that silence lived every bark, every step, every breath they'd taken together. Not for glory, not for revenge, but for loyalty, for promises kept, for the ones who never got to come home, and for a dog who did, and brought others back with him. What's your story with a loyal companion? If this story moved you, inspired you, or reminded you of your own journey with a four-legged hero, we'd love to hear it. Subscribe to German Shepherd for more true-to-heart tales of loyalty, courage, and the dogs who change everything. Because sometimes the bravest soldier walks on four legs.